It's really interesting to watch arguably two of the best debaters working today. But as usual, Andrew Wilson is playing a very technical, specific game that he has thought through. And this keeps happening.
Let's try. This got more contentious than I thought it would in the first few minutes.
When someone sits down with Andrew Wilson, the same pattern seems to play out. They don't seem to know what hit them. He's doing something very specific and technical, which they're not used to, and that causes them to usually get a bit upset, let's say.
Listen, dude, I know, I don't know anything about you. I don't know why Jacob thought this was going to be a good idea. I know you, dominate 20-year-old, OnlyFans sluts in debates.
I also dominate 45-year-old comedians in debates. What's your point?
To some people,
that was such a smooth comeback, and rightfully so. Dave Smith with that kind of rhetoric. I know you dominate 20-year-old intellectual momos, but I'm much smarter. I'm an intellectual libertarian. You can't make dumb arguments and let them stick with me. Bro, well. I feel like that was a bad faith statement by Dave Smith, and that was a beautiful response by Andrew Wilson there. I mean, I think you should, if you are someone of integrity, stick to making arguments that are based on the facts, based on the topic. The idea of trying to appeal to debasing someone's character, making ad hominem attacks, anything along those lines. Granted, I think the audience is skewed by that kind of rhetoric. I think for an intellectual and someone that actually cares about the truth, it doesn't matter. If someone is making a sound argument, I don't care if they have a reputation for being stupid, for having mass debates. I don't care if they are left-wing or right-wing. I just care if they are arguing in good faith and they're making intelligent arguments. And I think just the fact that Dave Smith was resorting to that kind of argument, I don't know who you are, you have a reputation for arguing with dumb people. No, just stick to the facts, bro. I mean, what was the argument he made? And is that wrong? And if it's wrong, explain why it's wrong.
Looks like, well, you're just being technically semantic, but all of this serves a purpose.
So let's answer.
Ask me a direct question.
Great.
I'm happy to answer.
Should the state come in and stop your brother from unaliving himself or not, Dave?
I would want them to, yes.
Yes. Would you want?
Oh, this is beautiful. These are my favorite kind of questions. They get to the heart of libertarian philosophy, natural law, natural individual rights. And this is one of the things that the conservatives hate about libertarians. They say things like, "Oh, you guys don't have any ethics because you're not willing to use common sense." And I can tell whether someone is a real student of natural law philosophy, libertarian philosophy, right? Classically, the rule of classic objective deontological ethics, or whether or not they become these conservative or leftist leaning people that kind of just insert their feelings when it's not convenient with the objective nature of ethics. And here's the perfect question for this. Let's see how Dave Smith answers this question.
The state to stop a man from having sex with his sister if it would lead to a non-reproductive act.
Okay. So the first question was, would you want the state to intervene and prevent your brother from committing suicide? Well, here's the thing. What you want is completely immaterial. It's what is actually acceptable, whether someone has a right to. This is where a lot of libertarians get this stuff twisted, or people don't understand how rights are supposed to work. If someone wants to end their life, they have a right to do so. End of story. Objectively, definitively, unequivocally. Any other arguments to the contrary are null and void. Now, I'm, on the other hand, may not want that to happen. Now, I may wrongfully use my force in order to prevent them from doing that, and I'm a human being. Just because I want something doesn't mean it's right. But objectively, they have a right to do that, and that's all that matters. Now, would I want someone to intervene? Now, I may want them to do that, but let's make it very clear. It is wrong. I don't have the right to use the state or use anyone else if someone definitively wants to end their life, commit suicide. And it's a difficult conversation for most people because their instincts kick in, and they just don't. They allow what they want to override the whole concept of natural rights. Freedom isn't about doing what you want. It's about allowing people to do what they will if they're not harming anyone in the process. And a lot of people can't get their minds around that. So yeah, whereas in a situation like that, I absolutely would not want my brother to kill himself. Would not want anyone to take their lives if unless of course they are in some kind of intractable pain and suffering. However, if they choose to, and they are consciously able to make that decision for themselves, and they very much want that, they have done all the research and they want to make that decision for themselves, absolutely they have a right to. That's all that matters. But a lot of people can't say that because they get caught up in their feels and whatnot. And that's the objective libertarian answer. Now, what you feel and how you may act in the situation is completely immaterial. In regards to the incest question, I love this. These are the taboo topics, right? Yeah, as much as people hate to acknowledge this, people have a right to do what they want. End of story, if they're not harming anyone in the process. If two people want to have sexual relations, and I don't care if they're gay, I think that stuff is disgusting. All that matters is that they are able to consent for themselves. Now, if you want to apply your status logic and say, well, it's disgusting, it's going to be negative towards the environment and so forth, they are not natural law arguments. Anytime you're appealing to potentiality, and Dave Smith, I'm sure he must be aware of this, but I don't think he's willing to acknowledge this, and at least I've heard him make similar remarks in arguments where he allows his conservative-esque, right-leaning, instinctive qualities to intervene in his understanding of natural rights and so forth. And I think this is a classic example. There is no buts, ifs, maybes about this. Yeah, I think it's gross. And I'm not just saying this, like, I don't actually care in regards to what people think about this, but yes, objectively, regardless of whether or not you think I'm a bad person, people have the right to have sex with other people, even if they are related. I mean, that's a spectrum idea. You could make the argument that we're all somewhat genetically related, but when it's too close, when it's a cousin or a brother or sister or something like that, well, it's so disgusting that you don't allow it. That's not how it's supposed to work within the realm of natural law. Potentiality doesn't factor into whether or not someone has a right to do something. It's whether they do or they don't, because there's some kind of violation of someone's right. Now, if two consenting people want to have interactions, they want to have sexual relations with themselves, I personally think it's gross because of the potential for there to be some kind of like deformity in the offspring and intellectual problems and so forth. That may or may not happen. That still applies to people that don't have any sibling filial relationships, right? But the idea of saying that they don't have a right to do that because of the potential for what might arise, you're speaking like a statist. And for my libertarian friends out there that want to make the arguments, any argument in contradiction to this, you are speaking like a statist, and this is not up for discussion. I mean, it's just, you can say that you think it's wrong and so forth, but it just puts you in the same realm as everyone else. It delineates you from a person that actually believes in these natural law principles to someone that doesn't. And that's all there is to it. Now, you could say that you think it's disgusting and so forth, like I would with many things, right? I have my own personal higher ethics, things that I would not do, but absolutely people have the right to do that. The only way they wouldn't have the right to do that is if someone didn't want to have sex with them, they're not actually able to consent, and you were forcing your will on them. That's not happening in an incestuous relationship. I don't know if Dave Smith has the intellectual integrity to acknowledge that, though.
Wait.
And this is what happens. People often shut down. They can't respond. And they resort to, what are we even doing here?
Wait, Jesus Christ. What you're talking about, like a...
He's right. This is what a lot of people tend to do. And I think deep down, Dave is not a stupid... Dave is an extremely intelligent person, but he just doesn't want to be logically consistent. When he's faced... I've noticed him do this a lot of times. When he's put in a situation where he's conflicted between his own personal ethics and his libertarian philosophy, like most people, he will squirm around and try to make them work when it's one or the other. Like, you can have your personal ethics, but you can't have it override the objective philosophy of natural law, which is what libertarianism is classically based on. Now, you can make the argument that you don't like this, you don't think it's a good thing, and so forth. But if you're trying to avoid the topic and at least acknowledge the fact that someone has a right to do something, right? Even though you think it's an inherently weird and disgusting or whatever is inappropriate thing to do, then you cannot make logically consistent arguments, and you end up destroying your credibility. That's how I see it anyway.
adults or
Yeah.
children?
Adults.
And Andrew is so good at staying focused, tunnel vision on what needs to happen. He has a step-by-step playbook, and he knows we're at the step, we need to get to the next one, and we're not going to get derailed here. So can you answer the question?
It really isn't. I realize this guy's giving a lot of credit to Andrew here, but I really don't think it's that it's that brilliant an argument. I mean, that's the kind of argument you would make as someone that is debating a libertarian if you're trying to win the crowd over, because most people don't want to look, and this is the one flaw, right? If you're arguing as a libertarian, there are certain libertarian ideals, if you were someone that believes in this philosophy, that are going to make you just seem like a bad person. Oh, really? You advocate for drugs? You don't have any ethics. This is what the left typically does. Oh, really? You think it's okay for people to have incestuous relationships? Oh, to just fuck anyone they want, right? As long as they're consenting. Oh, yeah. You don't care about the laws in the country. Yeah, it's going to arguably make you seem as if you don't have a good sense of ethics based on the subjective nature of people in some societies, but it won't make you look like a hypocrite if you answer it in the logically consistent way. Now, I think Dave Smith, granted he has this reputation of being someone that is very intelligent, and I think he is, he can't be logically consistent because he's conflicted with his own faith, which is not in line with the classical libertarian philosophy. That's why he ends up with egg on his face here. But I don't think Andrew Wilson's approach to this is really that impressive. I mean, it's just it would be what you would naturally do if you're arguing with someone that is not base, is someone that is more concerned about how they're going to come across. And it's very easy to win arguments like that if you're arguing with fake libertarians. And I'm sorry to say, that's basically what you end up being if you start saying, well, I don't believe that I don't believe people should be able to take drugs. I don't believe people should be able to have guns, but I am a libertarian. I don't believe people should be able to have incestuous relationships. Well, even though I am a libertarian. It's like calling yourself a vegan when you have meat on Sundays. Most libertarians, I would say, are libertarian-ish. They don't actually believe in these natural law principles. I would say, based on the vast majority of people that identify as libertarians, right? It's one of these like weird leftist things, like I identify with something even though you're actually not that thing. They have a wishy-washy philosophy when it comes to most of this kind of stuff. And I truly believe that the vast majority of them are just statists. They have like a leaning towards freedom, but only when it's convenient to them. And that still applies with Dave Smith, at least in this scenario.
So you want the state to utilize authority.
Well, not just the state. I would want anyone.
Okay, so I don't understand.
Anyone with the force to do it, or
Great.
anyone with the strength to do it.
Why would you want anyone with the strength to implement force and initiate violence on someone that is essentially peaceful? That's the exact opposite of your philosophy that you are, I believe that you are trying to advocate for. And you can use whatever terminology you want to in order to try to make it seem as if it's justified, but it fundamentally is not. As long as you are using force, you are initiating force here. So this is outside of self-defense, actual self-defense, right? Not this, well, they might do something bad in the future statist argument. There's nothing wrong with you using self-defense to prevent some kind of violence from you. But the idea of initiating violence to someone that's being peaceful, or advocating for an individual to initiate violence because you just don't like what they're doing even though they're peaceful, that's the definition of what we refer to as statism. So I don't know if Dave is just having an off day here. I don't think it is, because I really do think he is a brilliant debater, a mass debater, right? However, what really is his downfall here is that he's conflicted with his own higher Christian ideals and the classical ethics, the secular ethics of libertarian philosophy, right? What I call natural law philosophy. And I would still make the argument that whereas Andrew Wilson is doing a good job here, I think it's more a case of Dave Smith not being adequately able to defend this position that he has, that is making him have egg on his face, not due to the prowess of Andrew Wilson. That really is not a hard question to answer.
So then those people don't own themselves.
No,
that would be the logical conclusion.
I don't think that's the conclusion.
It is the conclusion, Dave, and it's actually really disappointing. This is anytime I see a situation like this, it's so. I mean, this is how you answer this and still maintain your integrity. Make a joke, say, oh, yeah. I don't want to talk about this. Let's move on to something else, right? So people know, yeah, you got me, touche. Or you say, you just act with integrity and say, look, classically based on actual libertarian philosophy, you shouldn't have the right to intervene. But personally, I mean, I'm not 100% with anything. As a human being, I would still advocate for violence, because I'm just not perfect. But I just want to be very clear about this: that yes, it is something that you shouldn't be able to do. It doesn't mean that I have an issue with it, though. And I have my own kind of higher ethics. That's how you maintain your integrity. But to be playing this game where you're like, oh, look, you try to attack someone, you make these cheap jibes, you try to pretend that they're just people that debate, people that are not in your league, and then you make inconsistent arguments that, well, actually, I don't believe it follows. Just because someone's allowed to initiate force and violate your rights, and I think that's okay, it doesn't mean that you don't have self-ownership. Yeah, it does. That's very disingenuous. And when people make these kind of arguments, you know that they cannot be logically consistent, and this is what you're dealing with.
Andrew Wilson sees a flaw in the claim that people should be able to do whatever they want to almost an extreme degree because of this concept of self-ownership.
If you want the state to go in, if a brother is banging his sister and she can't reproduce, I don't know how you can demonstrate.
Why does reproducing matter in this?
I'll explain. I'll explain
Sure.
why, so that you can't bank on reproduction as being a harm because it could have like some kid who's all fucked up.
That wouldn't even be an argument. Just because something has the potentiality to bring about a harm wouldn't allow you to prevent someone from doing that. I mean, granted, some lesser intellectually minded people that are proponents of this philosophy might argue that, but it's an extremely flawed argument. And yeah, of course, if people are doing something, I mean, this is such a basic question. I mean, there is no way in my mind Dave Smith could maintain the position of a libertarian or someone that believes in natural rights and make the arguments he's making here. So you can't even appeal to the potential for harm. You're just saying, I don't like this. This makes me feel squirmish, so people shouldn't be allowed to do it. What? I mean, that is the definition of a statist. Every argument that the left wants to make is predicated on that kind of thinking. Every non-freedom argument the conservatives want to make is predicated on that kind of thinking. Well, pornography is harmful. It should be banned. Oh, I don't think it's right for you to take drugs, even though, you're just doing it for yourself. It's wrong. You should be restricted. I mean, these are the exact state. It makes you seem like such a hypocrite. And this is the thing about this philosophy. If you're actually being logically consistent, you don't sound like a hypocrite. Granted, you sound like an ethical douche, right? To most people, right? However, you don't sound hypocritical. But when you are, the situation here is Dave Smith, I think, is just choosing the lesser of two evils, right? Something you shouldn't do, right? With someone that actually supports this philosophy. And let me quantify that. So he's opting to choose to not look like he's devoid of ethics, right? By making an argument that is not logically consistent, rather than actually being logically consistent and making an argument that is probably going to have a lot of people within the Christian conservative space make him look at him as if he's a bit kind of weird, right? However, he would at least be able to maintain his integrity. And I don't think he's base enough to be able to do that.
The ability to reproduce is important because you could make the argument that new life could have medical issues as a result. Therefore, we can use that as a justification.
That's a horrible argument. I mean, appeal to potentiality argument is an argument you absolutely should not be making if you're trying to be logically consistent, because anything has the potential for harm. And for someone to not be aware of that and to be considered himself a great debater in this, as from the philosophy that, particularly the philosophy that Adam is advocating for, is so unwise, retarded, and stupid. In all honesty, anytime someone makes that argument, the first thing I go to when I'm having these kind of conversations with statists that appeal to, well, you shouldn't be able to do this because it may lead to X and Y. It's the number one argument I make, because safety is a subjective construct. Anytime you appeal to what might happen, you're making this airy-fairy argument, and that should not play if you're having an intellectually honest conversation. So the fact that people even want to entertain this in the realm of objectivity is somewhat disconcerting to me.
He's taking that off the tables and then asking, okay, well, what about now?
if they own themselves and they're adults, these adults are consenting with each other, can you actually justify why that's wrong?
Sure.
Then justify why it's wrong.
Dave Smith claims, yes, I can justify it, sure, but watch how long it takes him to even attempt it. There's a reason, because if you're a libertarian, well, why wouldn't you be able to sleep with whoever you want to?
Exactly, and that's the actual position. This is why it's so disappointing when you hear someone like that. And this, I've maintained, I am not new to this because I've listened to enough mass debates with David Smith, and I respect him. I think he's a brilliant intellectual person, provided he's debating something that doesn't conflict with his Christian ethics, right? But he is not consistent on many positions, and the reason being, anytime he's faced with a situation where something just disgusts him, or something is going to lead to an outcome that he's not comfortable with, he makes these convoluted, disingenuous arguments that all politicians and all people that are not base make. And this is a classic example of that.
Even if you're related to them.
There's two questions. One is, could I justify someone using force to stop them? And then there's, could I justify why it's wrong?
Yeah, I'm just asking why it's wrong.
All the same question, like justify the use. The only reason you can justify the use of force is because it's infringing, because they're infringing on someone's natural rights. It's the only position you can make. Non appeal to safety argument. I mean, I often think like, and I know this is not a correct statement, because I know Dave Smith is extremely well versed in this philosophy. That's why I'm thinking, like, I think he's just being dishonest, and I hate to say it. Like, I think he's looking for an out here in his argumentation, or there's some kind of like psychological schism that's taking place here, because he must be aware of at least the position that he has is not consistent with the philosophy that he's advocating for, unless he's just making this debate from a place of, look, I don't care about any philosophy here. I'm just saying what I think should be implemented here. But like, you cannot make this argument and call yourself a libertarian or someone that believes in the philosophy of natural law. It's predicated on individual rights, unless, of course, you don't believe in logical consistency.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Okay. Do you get why those are two different things, though? You get the point I'm making.
Yeah, sure. So can you answer the question?
No, they're relevant to the underlying question.
Listen, man. Do you want to like have a decent back and forth here, or like?
Okay, so after you made that point, you don't even want to elaborate on the situations where you think it would be justified. You're like, oh man, do you want to have a decent back and forth? It's like trying to move away from the actual. It's frustrating for me because I would like to side with Dave Smith on this. I mean, I typically, my one criticism of Andrew Wilson, right? Granted, he is probably more logically consistent. I think a lot of the times anyway. I don't find his philosophy to be logically consistent, but I think he has probably more integrity, at least in this debate. I haven't watched enough of Andrew Wilson's debates. He's mean, and I know this sounds like a flimsical argument, but Andrew is quite mean a lot of the times, man. In this debate, I think he's actually been very considerate, but a lot of the times I find Andrew to be unnecessarily rude towards people, and I don't think that brings about good rapport, and I just don't think it's necessary, and it's just something that I aesthetically don't approve of. But you know, I can't really make the argument, at least in this case, that he's making any bad faith arguments. But Dave Smith, granted, I think he's actually being disrespectful here because he's being disingenuous. He's using cheap dives, but also he is actually being intellectually dishonest.
Do you want to not?
You're still not answering the question.
Okay.
That can come across as abrasive and rude. That's one of his strengths, is that he puts all subjective feeling aside and focuses solely on the logic.
Can you justify why it's actually wrong for two consenting adults?
Yeah. See, the thing is, I am answering the question. You're just kind of being a dick.
Well,
No, Dave, you unequivocally are not answering the question. And honestly, like, whereas I would say that Dave Smith exhibits high intellectual argumentation when I listen to his debates, mad props to this guy. He's one of the few figures I listen to and go, damn, this guy's good. Makes me think when he's making arguments based off of like this philosophy that he advocates for, right? Most of the time, I would call him a Momo in this situation. Like either a Momo or here's the thing: if you're not a Momo, and you're just you're just the kind of person that's really able to pretend that you're being sincere. You can get, I can still have some respect for you, like someone like Andrew Tate, something like that, right? At least have this veneer of perception that you actually believe in what you're saying, and I think a lot of people would fall for it, and you're like, that guy's a great bullshit artist. I respect that. You'd be like, yeah, he's a bullshit artist, but he's a good bullshit artist. Dave Smith doesn't even come across as someone that truly believes in the attempts that he's pushing right now, like to make it seem as if this is just completely ridiculous and you haven't got me here. You seem like someone that is basically just, you have egg on your face, and you can't even acknowledge that this guy, I'd give it to him, because this is how you maintain your integrity. When someone makes an argument where you're like, yeah, you got me, you know what, I actually, I guess I'm not a libertarian, I just, you know what, I agree with you on this one. Yeah, look, technically speaking, this is what it should actually be, like based on this philosophy. But yeah, you should be able to do that, should be able to have sex with relatives and so forth, but I think it's absolutely disgusting, so you got me there. That would be the kind of answer that someone would give that I would have a lot of respect for. Or someone that just bullshits, like is convincing with their bullshit, like, bro, what the fuck what are you talking about, man? And you believe him. But I know Dave is actually not that stupid, and or there's some kind of weird schism going on. Therefore, I even have less respect for him, because his attempt to convince you that he sincerely thinks that this is a ridiculous argument is just not swaying me. And I don't think he's either he is just not effective enough at pulling the wool over people's eyes, or he truly is just so conflicted with this that his entire perception of reality has moved into this realm of schism where he can't see truth from fiction. And it's very frustrating. And I don't think anyone that has that worldview should be advocating for it. Oh, should be advocating for the philosophy of libertarianism, that's for sure.
Trying to win the debate.
When are you
rather than
going to
having a
answer the
conversation.
question, Dave?
See,
All right, give him a chance.
So is
Andrew.
that actually, like, does anyone listening to this think this makes for like good debate tactics?
Yeah, I do actually, because he's trying to get you to answer that question. If you said, hey, listen, I don't want to talk about this particular topic, let's move on. And he said, look, so you can see. And you said, yeah, so I can see. Let's move on to another topic. Then I would have some kind of respect for you. But you're playing this game where you clearly don't want to answer the question. You're pretending to try to answer the question, but you're not. None of your arguments, Dave, are even remotely convincing. And I want to back you. I want to be on your side saying I want to be making all these arguments against Andrew right now. But because I have integrity, I'm not. I'm here saying that Andrew is actually being the man of integrity, and you're being the disingenuous person, when that's the last thing I want to be doing here. So it's really frustrating when people do this kind of stuff.
I do. I think this is highly effective and actually serves a purpose. There's a reason for all of this.
No, you actually are not like recognizing that there's a difference between these two things. So
I just told you I do.
Let's leave him.
All right, do you guys want to do this, man? I fucking like honestly, dude. This is just
You've
like,
talked. We've talked way more than I have, Dave. I just want.
So he's just conceded to one of your arguments there, and like you're still frustrated about it. So you decide to pretend that he's actually not being transparent about his views and so forth, or because he hasn't arrived at the same view that you have. You're trying to somehow debase his stance. I mean, Dave, this is so disappointing, and the thing about this is it sticks with people. Like I see this once in any debate, for that matter, right? I see someone doing this once, they're not even trying to be funny about it, ignore it, and I can't trust someone. I do this shit with my friends all the time. I trust them until I have an argument with them, and they do something that is so disingenuous, and that you know that you can't trust them again. And this is that situation for someone that's always advocating for honesty and actual principles. To actually hear someone make this kind of argument and use these tactics, it's like, Dave, what the fuck, bro? What the actual fuck? And I'm saying this from someone that actually really likes the preponderance of your work, man. I think you're doing a lot of great stuff, but this is a situation where it's really egg on your face. And it's maybe he's just much smarter than I am, in the sense that he's chosen a lesser of two evils here, right? He's not as base as I am, that's for sure. He's like, I would much rather come across as being disingenuous than to go on public TV and to come across as someone that's completely devoid of ethics. And I'm going to say something like, incest is acceptable. That's such an atrocious thing. I could never say that. Whereas I don't have a problem acknowledging any of that shit, because I actually believe in freedom. Now, granted, I can still say aesthetically, I think it's gross, and I do think it's gross. I think it's weird, but I'm still not gonna lose my L card here and make these disingenuous arguments.
To answer my question, can you justify it or not, bro?
Okay. So anyway, I'll go back to saying, do you guys want to do this? Do you guys want to like do a show here, or like what's the point of this?
It's very similar to what we saw with Tim Pool. Nothing against Tim Pool. This is just what it looks like when you encounter such a specific, technical, thought-out plan. The sponsor of this video is The Wellness Company. The big medical hack of 2025 with several peer-reviewed studies. Answers the connection between tumor growth often go undetected and to complete the TWC.
I mean, you talk over me every time I try to answer.
I
the
just
question.
want you to answer the question.
No, I understand you do, and I was.
Because this is the question that needs to be answered. And he claimed, yes, I can answer it. But notice how much time is ticking by here.
Ask me the question again. I'm sorry.
Can you justify why two consenting adults who are brother and sister having sex is morally wrong?
Yes.
Then do it.
And do it.
Okay, because I think it's for the same reason you would think. I think it's against nature. It's evil. It just seems horrible.
These are subjective terms.
Okay, absolutely. Now, I here's the thing. You're speaking not from someone actually believe. Fair enough. I mean, it's one thing to say something like that, right? But that's just your own subjective opinion. It's got nothing. It's not based on some kind of like rationale of self-ownership. That's a very separate thing. It's like me saying, I think it's completely immoral and weird for people to wipe their ass with their right hand. It's completely unacceptable. And there are some people, I'm sure, that think that, you know. Now, that would be just as valid a moral claim as to make as this. Now, granted, a lot of people would disagree, but it's very subjective. But it's not rooted in any appeal to the whole concept of natural rights, of self-ownership. And the thing is, Dave Smith should, or at least I think he's trying to root his claim within this philosophy, and it's just not an argument. And it's very disappointing.
Terms though, it seems wrong. It's evil. What does evil mean? The whole point of epistemology is grounding our thinking in something. And
Exactly. This is the frustrating thing about what people would do during the 2020 pandemic and whatnot. You know, they'd ground all their arguments around why people should be forced to take experimental gene therapies with the argumentation that, oh, look, it just feels wrong, it's selfish, you shouldn't be doing it, oh, you need to be locked up, right? It's like, well, I could just be making an argument that was very clear, grounded in truth, and this is actually what I felt intuitively based on my own natural instincts, right? But mine was actually, bearing in mind, my argument was actually grounded in facts. You can't force your will on someone when they're not harming anyone in the process. You can't appeal to potentiality, what might happen. And this is as much as Dave would probably take tremendous issue with this argument, he is just as bad as the people that were pushing these drugs, right? If he cannot openly just say that people have a right to do something like that, ultimately you don't believe in self-ownership. Now, granted, it may make you feel queasy. We all have our subjective aesthetics, but if you're willing to use force to restrict someone, it makes you no better than the people on the left, the people on the right, and the vast majority of people that play this game where they choose the lesser of two evils. It's the train tracks dilemma. It's like, let me kill one person, in order to avoid 5 from happening, or maybe let me choose this restriction here where I'm taking away someone's rights because I feel like it would be a better option. That's not how it works. And if you can't understand that, then you're either being disingenuous on some kind of intellectual level, and this is not up for debate, or you do not understand the philosophy at hand. It is an objective system, what we're talking about here. But it's just so that some people have their own instinctive, whimsical ideas about things, and as a result, they start playing this totalitarian game where they want to restrict people because they're doing things they don't like.
Andrew's whole point is that the only thing we can ground these claims in is some objective truth, aka a higher power of God.
I don't know. Do you have a better?
Yeah, the whole concept of individual rights comes from the idea of self-ownership. Then why do we own ourselves? It's because we have. You can make the argument because we have that spark of God within us. We own ourselves. We're free. We're connected to the divine source, the Logos. I would say that is the concept of natural law. Individual rights and natural law are hand in hand. But what you're doing as a status is some kind of like Momo is you're applying your own instinctive wants on a situation and trying to override someone's natural rights and saying that you're doing it in the interest of the greater good. And this is the distinction between collectivist ethics and individual ethics. And if you can understand that, then you 100% should not be playing this game. And you 100% should take away your L card and just stop calling yourself a statist, you know?
Answer for why it's wrong?
Well, yes, divine command.
Divine command. Okay, fine. So I also say divine command. That's
Yeah, but you can use that argument for everything. It's wrong. It's wrong to masturbate because it goes against divine command. It is wrong for you to avoid being inoculated by experimental gene therapies because it goes against divine command. It's wrong for you to not enslave yourself to me and to pay taxation because it's against divine command. And divine command is anything that I feel is divine command. And that puts you in the realm of a statist or some scribe conservative that just follows some Bible verse that has no relevance in natural law, and they claim it's the word of God. Oh my God. This is so unbelievably disappointing, Dave.
It's wrong.
It's happened with Tim Pool too. Once they get to this point, they recognize that, oh, there's nowhere else to go. So fine, we'll go with.
This is so revealing. It really is. Because like when people, because here's the thing, the alternative, right? And I think this probably would have had sway with a lot of people. The alternative is for someone to go out there and just be this cold-hearted libertarian person, right? Voluntarist, call yourself what you will, like myself, and just say, nope, it's not wrong. And then you get cold like a crazy psychopath doesn't have ethics. And I don't really care about that because I think the vast majority of people in the world don't even believe in ethics. They're moral relativists that think you can do anything you want based on how you feel. And I'm quite happy. If a bunch of rapists are calling me a bad person, I don't care. I really don't. I'm sorry, but I don't. I still want to get along with them. I still want to be friends with them, you know? And you can call me a bad person because I want to associate with people that I don't respect and so forth. But here's the thing. I realize that most people don't have the intellectual honesty to acknowledge certain things. Doesn't mean I don't want to hang out with them. However, I myself am not going to catch their virus, right, by losing objectivity and accepting things as being wrong when they're not. Just because I want to fit in, I want to be in the cool club. And I think, and this is my opinion, I could be completely wrong about this, right? But I think this is what's happening to Dave Smith here. Either that or he's just got some weird psychological schism at play, or he realizes what he's doing, but is just not very good at bullshitting and making us convinced that he truly is coming from a good place. And I think that's probably the more likely scenario here, man. I just don't think he's convincing enough in his bullshit artistry, right, in order to make me convinced that he truly does feel this way, and he doesn't see any kind of disconnect with the arguments he's making. I think he's very well aware of them. He just can't concede, and he's got some kind of weird schism that's going on.
Divine command, we'll go with God. Fine. Watch what happens next, because therefore what?
Well, but
There
then
you go.
the axiom of self-ownership would be wrong. Couldn't I just apply that to homosexuals as well and say, well, it seems like it's against nature?
Exactly. And Dave Smith, this is why you're conservative, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, of course, but for people that are actually intellectually clued on, it's not the same thing as standing for natural law. Being a conservative, right, and actually advocating for this kind of stuff, like people not having incest. How could you advocate for incest? I don't advocate for it. I just think people have a right to do what they want. It's just consistent with self-ownership and natural law. I believe in being a consistent moral person, unlike people that just want to use their force and force you to get taxed, force you to take experimental gene therapies, force you to not do things and not violating anyone's right, having consensual relationships with people because they want to be with you. Even though I don't want to do those things, I believe people have the right to do that. Well, that's just wrong. How dare you? Okay, well, you can call yourself, I'm just going to call you a statist, and I'm going to call myself a good person because I believe in morals, and we can just go our separate ways.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you could.
Notice how he's trying to play this off by adopting Andrew's point, but saying it in a sarcastic way to try
Yes, agree.
and make it look like he's still in control of the frame.
Yeah, right on point. And I hate people to do that shit. And the thing is, I think most people, I think, that are intelligent enough are aware of what's going on here. And I guess it comes down to value system. I would much rather, in argumentation, I don't lie. I lie if a police officer is trying to arrest me or some shit like that, I'm gonna fucking lie to their face, piece of shit. Self-defense, right? But when I'm having a conversation, a debate, anyone I trust publicly, it is so important that at the very least, I don't care. Granted, I want you to think I'm a good person. That's important to me, but not at the cost of integrity. I would much rather you believe that I believe everything that I'm saying. The only way to do that is actually to be honest, right? That I don't play these games that people do where they try to gain the upper hand and they try to like manipulate. I actually just don't do that shit. If you don't like me, it's because, believe me, you don't like me because you just don't like my views. But it's not because of deception. And when I'm in the other seat and I'm seeing this kind of game that's been played where people are trying to play these underhanded tactics to gain the upper hand, they're being deceptive in their mocks, they're making bad faith arguments, it disgusts me. This is why I don't have a problem listening to people that I think have morally reprehensible views, right? Granted, I'd probably not going to hang out with these people, but I can still respect them for their integrity. People like Thanos, people that are are just bad, but they own, well, I think they're bad, but they just own, you know where you stand with them. But when people are in this weird schism where they're just logically inconsistent, and I know they should know better. Because look, Dave Smith is a very intelligent person, but in a sense, he is, but in another sense, he's retarded. If this is either that or he's just really bad at convincing people when he's bullshitting, because he's suffering from this psychological schism that affects a lot of people where they cannot see reality for what it is. And that has to do with them being jaded by their own values and what they know to be actually consistent. It's like someone that has been convinced that 1 + 1 is equal to 3. It's Asch conformity, where people are, through the group, made to think things that they know are not actually correct, but because they are more invested in believing this, because in order to uphold a worldview that the majority or their group thinks, they're willing to adopt that. It's this weird form of mass formation, this psychological lack of immunity that has affected a lot of people like a disease. And this is what I'm referring to, because anyone that cannot look at this argument and understand that, yes, according to your worldview, David Smith, there is a massive contradiction here. You're either deceiving yourself or you just don't have the ability to see what is. And I cannot say it any more bluntly than that.
But he's not.
So your moral oughts are based around just things that gross you out?
No, divine intervention, bro.
The way that he said that, though, it's like, hey man, look, I'm not even gonna attempt to like have a serious conversation now. No, divine intervention, bro. Yeah, you're just making silly arguments here, so I'm not gonna even address them in an honest and sincere manner, because this is all fake. You're not worthy of it, and it's so disingenuous.
Command?
Yeah, there you go.
So if it's divine command, then you're going to abandon libertarianism and you're going to come over to Christian ethics, right?
No.
No. But I thought you made your justification based on divine command.
He's acknowledging Andrew's point, but then dismissing what it entails. It's fascinating watching Andrew do these things, because he's always on the offense. He's always in control of the frame, because he's playing such a specific game that he has thought out.
I don't care about frame. I don't care about all that. That's what you do when you're concerned about winning an argument, because you're concerned about convincing people. But when you know your position is correct, you don't have to play those games. You can just speak openly and honestly. Dave Smith lost this, right, because he's more concerned about optics. And Andrew Wilson won this not because of his tactics per se, but because he's just right. His argument is right. Like, this is the thing that I don't understand. If you're arguing 1 + 1 is equal to 2, I don't care how good you are at obfuscation. That shit is only going to work with people that just don't want to see reality, right? All that really matters is if you're right in your argumentation. But if you're someone that is affected by all of the rhetoric, all the misdirection, all the games that people play in argumentation, then you actually care about who makes the more convincing argument. All I care about is if the argument is actually right. This is so blatantly obvious, but people allow their subjective reality to influence the situation here. Now, if you have a Christian worldview, the one that's adopted by the majority of people, and you believe that things should just be restricted because they gross you out. Yeah, you're living in this subjective plane where it's subjective. It's based on your own instincts, right? And so forth. But if you're actually basing your worldview around this philosophy that's based on individual rights, that is supposed to represent that we're all endowed with these unalienable rights that are given to us by our Creator, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the whole concept of a classic individual rights. Then this argument that you don't have a right to consent to sex with someone, even if they're related to you, is just completely built of errant imagination. It's not up for discussion. And people that make these arguments, oh really, you're arguing for... Me arguing for something that is disgusting is irrelevant. I argue for something because it's true. There's no religion higher than truth. And the problem with these people is they allow their religion, they allow their ideology to override truth when it suits them. And then you lose your integrity. And then, bro, then everything that you say is up for questioning. Well, everything you say should be up for questioning, but I'm more inclined to take what you say with a grain of salt now, because you've done this once and you're probably going to do it again.
Where he needs to go. He knows where they're going to go before they even get there.
Listen, dude, I know, I don't know anything about you. I don't know why Jacob thought this was going to be a good idea.
And when it goes badly, this is what always happens. Andrew, you're just acting in bad faith. I can't have this conversation. Who thought this would be a good idea? It's some form of, well, this is just beneath me.
I know you dominate 20-year-old OnlyFans sluts in debates.
I also dominate 45-year-old comedians in debates. What's your point?
This is nothing against Dave Smith.
Brilliant comment there. That was absolutely justified. And I actually have a lot of respect for Andrew, because I think Andrew was actually being very diplomatic, very to the point, but I don't hear him saying anything that was offensive, And if you respond to an ad hominem attack with justifiable, cheap jive, I think that's perfectly fine. But he wasn't attacking Dave Smith's character here, which I have a lot of respect for. I mean, maybe that's just me. Like, when I hear someone in a debate and they don't attack someone's character just because they're losing, or they just stick to the points, I have a lot of respect for that. And look, it's because it's hard to do when you're mad at someone because they have a position that you find morally reprehensible. You tend to go with the character attacks on them, and it's not. I've done that in the past. I don't do that because I'm trying to win an argument, though. I just do that because I'm a human. I get pissed off. It's like, you fucking piece of shit. You have a disgusting position, However, I would still have the integrity to say, particularly in this situation, if it was something that I just thought was gross, right? I'd be like, but yeah, you know what? You have a right to do it. Like, it's consistent with this philosophy. I'd be honest about it, but I'd still say, but I think you're a piece of shit. And these are the kind of arguments I make sometimes with people that are being extremely mean-spirited or selfish and so forth. Yeah, man, you have absolutely every right to do that and not to help someone that is clearly going to die in a situation like that. You're right, but I just think you're being a dick. And yeah, I guess you could say I'm being a dick in other ways as well. But there is an integrity that you can maintain by doing that. But the way in which Dave Smith handled this is not something that shows integrity. And I know the kind of person that he is. That's probably the most insulting thing that I could say to him. And I'm not trying to be insulting, but I am trying to be honest. And I think there's a lot to be learned from this debate, this mass debate here. And it's that when you are arguing, always maintain your integrity. Because, look, I think, people are going to have issues with you on a whole bunch of different ethical issues and so forth. And that's just the reality of politics of the world. But when you lose your integrity, it affects someone's ability to actually trust you at all, and then everything breaks down from there. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Do you think Andrew did a fair job? Do you think he doesn't know what he's talking about, or do you think Dave Smith is someone that is completely caught up in this moral conundrum where his Christian ethics are not in line with his libertarian natural law philosophy? Or anyway, let us know in the thoughts below. Peace!